Good morning, guys. Today, this little short video is going to be on how to create an infinite pattern that you can use to fill in any object that you make in Photoshop. I'm on a vintage wallpaper patterns page in Google, and I've been looking at different patterns, and I'm going to go ahead and use this pattern as our initial pattern that we'd like to create an infinite pattern from. I'm going to go ahead and take that and just click on it and move it onto my Photoshop document icon or a Photoshop icon, let go, and that'll automatically open this pattern in Photoshop. I'm taking a look and making sure that the mode is RGB, because sometimes you get these patterns in their PNG files. The first thing we see right away is that we don't want the word vector stock here in the pattern, so I'm going to Command T or double click the background first, and now Command T to transform this layer, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down until so I can stretch it, otherwise it will change proportionally. And I'm just going to get rid of that vector stock and hit return. So we're starting with a good pattern in our layer, and the entire layer is filled with this pattern. Now the new view in Photoshop is under View, Pattern Preview, and what that will do is give us a dialog about smart objects. We'll hit OK, and now you can see if I go to my move tool that there is in fact an infinite pattern here. Photoshop has tried to do a good job of whatever's on the left moving to the right. This used to be an offset element that we used to do, and you can kind of see that works really nice. And now we're going to go ahead and save this pattern, and under our edit we have define pattern, and we can call this pattern 1, and now we have just defined this pattern. Now we also have a window specifically set up for patterns, and we're going to open this so that we can actually see that we have this new pattern that we've just created. And you'll notice that when I click on this pattern here, it creates a new layer, a new fill layer, which is something that we're going to be doing next. So I'm going to show you how to take this pattern and use it to fill something in a different document. So let's go ahead and go to File, New, and we're just going to create a new HD 1080p document. And say, for instance, I'm going to double click the background here, and I'm going to select everything and just delete it so you can see that I've got some transparency, and deselect, Command D. Now if I were to take the brush tool and I were to brush, I'm going to change this to black, and I were to brush this like shape here, for instance, or if I were to have a shape like I'm going to use my marquee tool and just have a shape like this and fill it with black or something like that. Anyway, however you create an object with a fill, if you deselect, if you then double click this pattern in this pattern box, you'll see that it automatically fills in anywhere there was color and compared to transparency with the pattern you selected using this pattern fill. Now this pattern fill is clipping, so you can unclip it just by option clicking in between the two layers, as you know how to do already. But this actually will fill that object with the pattern that I've created. Now, the nice part about this is if you want the pattern to be a little bit more repetitive, or you want to turn it or rotate it, all you have to do is double click the pattern fill layer, and it brings up this dialog box, which allows you to then modify the angle and modify the scale as well. You can make it smaller, as you can kind of see. I can bring it down to almost 50%, and it'll actually make more of that pattern visible. So you can see 43%, so 27%, until you're satisfied. And this gives you the option to go back and actually add in that pattern. Now remember, it's clipping this layer, so this layer has to have a color. And it doesn't matter what color. So if you pick white and use the brush tool, for this layer, B for brush, and you brush in this white, you can see there's two colors here. But if you go to your pattern fill, it thinks of anything that's not transparent as a single color. And you'll notice there's no real boundary either. So just something to be aware of when you're using this pattern fill technique. So one thing, now that you've got your object with the pattern, you can kind of see if you want to export this to Motion, remember that you've got to create like a flat image. Motion will not pick up this pattern fill layer at all. So make sure to select everything that you want crushed together, and then go to Layer, and then merge layers right here, or Command E. When you do that, it now turns it into a simple layer that you can kind of see that is just this layer, and you don't have to worry about it so much. But remember to do that, because again, if you forget to do that before you export it to Motion, Motion will not pick up that pattern layer. One more thing I wanted to go over, if I go back to here and pick a pattern that is something like this, if you pick something like this, I'm going to go ahead and bring this into Photoshop. And it'll open up just like before. We'll go to our, I'm going to double click the background just so I have it. And I'm going to go to View and then Pattern Preview and hit OK. You'll notice that if I use my Move tool, this pattern has some issues because of the way the nature of this pattern had a dark area on one side and a light area on the other. It's actually not looking, and if I can zoom out, it's not looking as perfect as I would want it. Now, there might be a couple ways you can get around moving around or fixing this. You can actually drag that pattern to the right. I'm holding the Shift key down, and you can see the seam here. If you could somehow fix that seam a little bit inside of this window, that would help a lot. So one thing you could do is just hit M for Marquee and just select this area, and it looks like it kind of goes to here. I'm selecting this whole entire thing, and I'm going to Shift Delete and try the Content Aware Delete and see what it will do. And you can see when I do that, Photoshop tries to fill in some of those things using AI. And already, if you zoom out, you've got, it feels better in the X direction here. Now, if I move the Y up a little bit and I do the same thing here, I marquee this area, which has that kind of obvious line, and just take a little bit more from the top there and hit Shift Delete and allow it to be content aware. Let's see if that fixes some stuff. Maybe it helps a little bit. And it takes a while because it's calculating all the pixels here, and you'll see it made up some pixels. So this is not the original pattern, but it might look a little more flawless than the previous pattern. You can see there's some issues still here. You can work on it doing different things. You might want to deselect or change the background to black and white to help a little bit, right? Open up your levels, Command L, and just increase or decrease the brightness. Whatever it is you want to do to this object to kind of get rid of these seams. But once you've gotten rid of the seams, because you can actually see them, right? The nice part is with this program that allows you to kind of see the seams and try to really fix them within that frame. And if you need to, you can scooch this around until everything looks pretty good. And then you can go to your pattern window and hit the little plus button here, or go to the edit and define pattern. And we're going to call this pattern 2. And that can now be used as, just like the other patterns, to create clipping masks for your objects. I hope this helps, and look forward to seeing you guys in class on Friday.